In terms of supplier selection, here are just some of the cool things that I want to put out. When you're looking at your supplier and you're working out, are these the right people to move forward with for manufacturing my product? Where you can, if you've got a preferred supplier that you know you're going with, it's a good idea to get them involved in the process earlier on. However, if you're new to the market and you're looking at entering it, get chatting to the different suppliers and manufacturers out there and see if any of them are willing to come in and provide you that advice, maybe even for a fee. The difference it can make to your timescales can be quite dramatic. In terms of evaluating your supplier, when you're looking at communication, find out who your contact person is. Find out who the senior people are, the structure of the organisation and how it all works. Is your contact person the right person to be to talk to about the actual technical aspects of your product? And also, who is your contact person in a crisis and what is their procedure? Will they contact you right away, for example, if a power outage affects the production of your product? Record every interaction you have with them on the phone, face to face, write it down and keep this in your end supplier evaluation matrix so that you can see along the process how much they value you as a client, and it's a good reflection of how they're going to communicate with you once you are a client of theirs. If they're not interested at the beginning of the process, more than likely they're not going to be that interested once you're being manufactured with them, and you don't want to get pushed aside for other clients that are new coming in that they're more interested in. Once you've visited clients initially, it's also a good idea to then take a look back at your request for quotation and have a look at the aspects on there and see what else you can add in. After you've looked around an assembly provider, it may prompt a whole bunch more questions that you want people to answer in your request for quote, which can really help with that decision process. In terms of competency, you need to look at whether they have the capability to meet your needs, whether you're going to be pushing their technology boundaries, or whether this is easily within their capacity. Have a look at a product that they're already working on. Have a look at their assembly instructions. Are they straightforward? Is the system that they're using working? Have a look at their sample products. Check the quality of the products. And also try and find out where you can, if they've had customers that have left, why they have left, and what the staff morale is like in terms of staff turnover. For certification, quality, a really good one to look out for a manufacturer to have is ISO 9001, and that's the implementation of the quality management system. It's a good idea, if you can, to have a look at their quality management system, see how often they're updating it, and how that also feeds into their quality control process. You want them to be able to show that they consistently can deliver you the quality of product that you want. One step in that is to check what their inwards good inspection process is. If you've got an instrument made up with a lot of components, some of those components may need to be pre-tested before they're assembled to check that there's not a failure within that component. Because if you leave that until the instrument is being tested right down the end of the track to check complete functionality, it takes a long time to work out and backwards where that faulty component can be. Quality checks in line. With the injection moulding, when I worked on the medical devices, we had a tooling validation procedure where the tool would come in from the tool maker. We'd do a factory acceptance test. We'd check that everything was moving in the tool as it should. We'd do a site acceptance test. We'd put it into a machine and check that ejection pins moved as they should. And then we'd do an initial qualification where you start playing around with mould flows, cycle times, getting a rough feel for how this product will work, and when necessary going into a design of experiments to adjust all of the parameters to optimize the quality of the product and the time that it took to produce. Have a look at the quality checks that they have in line. The next step that we had was an operational qualification process where we did an 8-hour run and took products from every hour along the 8-hour, and in the quality check place there was a room where there were visual inspections and measurements on these parts to check that they were meeting the dimensions on the drawings, the control on the critical dimensions. Go in and have a look at their quality department, see their equipment that they're using, and find out how often it's calibrated. That's very key to make sure that it is being calibrated. Good practice when we worked with the injection moulding supplier was to have a secondary quality control check place, check exactly the same batch of products, so we could constantly check in with them throughout the year to make sure our equipment was still calibrated. In terms of handling, talk to them about material lead time. Sometimes you'll find something like a particular plastic colour maybe on a 16-week lead time for the plastics manufacturer to do those different shades of colour. Majority of plastics come off the shelf already in stock. However, if you're doing something quite unique, you're going to have to wait until that production cycle has ended or gotten around to your particular area to happen. Now this is where it's really key to find out the lead times on all of your parts. Go with your bill of materials, work through everything, and where you can, at design freeze, order your materials in advance, order the components that you know you're going to use in advance where you can, because somewhere you could end up having a 12-week lead time before you can start putting in your order and getting things assembled. You can cut down to 6 weeks by pre-ordering. Have a look at how they hold your product at the end of manufacturing. What are their storage capabilities? Do you need to take the product immediately? Will they store a backlog to take care of any sort of incidences that may affect the production supply? And just checking that the storage is appropriate for use. In terms of the bills of materials, when you're talking about it with your supplier, sometimes you might have a critical components list. This can be components which need to meet certain standards, where you can mark on the bills of materials of these components cannot be replaced or substituted, they must be these ones. So in some areas it may be a good idea to get stock of those components. Other components might be easily substituted and can be identified to either substitute with something else that they already have in the factory or something else that's got a better supply chain to it. Another important part in the handling is looking at how they handle their drawing revisions, their documentation. If you have various drawing revisions going forward for them to review, can this product be produced properly? Have we designed it correctly? Or if you've got tweaks happening to your design where you're updating revisions of the product, you want to make sure that on site they're handling that appropriately, that they are marking every printed copy as obsolete, that all the electronic copies have been put into an archive, and that all the relevant heads of departments sign to acknowledge they have received this document for the product where applicable. And also make sure that on your purchase order you reference that revision as well, so that should anything happen like the wrong revision get manufactured, you have the backup on your purchase order that that's the one that you ordered. In terms of state, having a look at the machines. What sort of state are the machines and the equipment that they're using? What are their plans to replace these in the future? How do they go about assessing the state of their own plant to work out what improvements they should be doing down the track? And also have a look at their disposal process. If your product is a high IP product, the last thing you want to do is, if there's rejects on the line, have it thrown into an area where people who are not under your confidentiality agreement can have access to this product. This is a very rare occurrence where this can actually happen, but it's good to check that they reprocess the plastics or handle it in an appropriate way for your IP protection. Obviously you're going to be evaluating them in terms of order deadlines, but also look at the company in terms of their long-term growth and their upskilling. Where are they heading in the future? Are you a big fish in their small pond now? And are they about to get a really big customer, expand their site, where all of a sudden you might be seen as a really small fish? It's good to know your position in the company now and in the future for the longevity of how long you're looking at producing the product. Also to look at their financial stability and their ability to weather the storms of power outages, financial crisis, other customers changing their orders or stripping their orders, to make sure that they will still be there to be committed to your orders. Policy. We have a product that you need the complete order to be fulfilled in order for your sale to work. It's really important to have a policy in place for complete fulfillment of the order. I had a situation where we were ordering DVD players for flying in aircrafts for when the expensive end of the aircraft, the screens would go down, they would have a portable DVD player for the passengers to use. Now, in order for this to work, we had to charge batteries on the ground in the UK. There needed to be a battery up in the air, and we needed an additional battery in the bag to circulate for the round trip back. So we needed 3 times the amount of batteries as what we had DVD players. Now, we were with a supplier who had this fantastic product, and they managed to get us all the DVD players with their batteries, and we were waiting for the supply of the additional batteries from a manufacturer in China. We started building the charging boards, moving the project forward for implementation. The old stock was beginning to play up, so we're really looking forward to putting the new one into process. However, believe it or not, the manufacturer had a fire and the factory broke down. This was not an excuse, it genuinely happened. We saw pictures. You wouldn't believe it, but it actually happened. So it's important in a situation like this to be able to hand the stock back. If they're not completing that battery order, that means that you're not going to be able to fulfill the need for that product. It's really important where you can to not use the product and have the ability to hand it back where there's not that end commitment being fulfilled. Also, their policy on returns and rejects. If you get products that don't work, what is their process for taking those back in? How do they do non-conformance reports? What do they do in terms of those non-conformance reports? Do they look at that and bring that back into their quality assurance process to try and improve the way that things work for the future? Or do they just take it and go, oh, we had 100 out of 200 fail, and carry on with a high reject rate? It's really important to look at those procedures. And cost. So whilst cost is normally at the forefront of your mind when you're looking at your supplier evaluation metrics, it's very important to look at the quality and get samples where you can of the product. If you're getting someone quoting a cheaper price, check the quality.